having given it some deliberation, I've determined that in creative writing, well, creative nonfiction, the number one thing that gets me started, that's my prompt, I guess, is an emotion, my felt sense, that I want to convey to a reader. Case in point, when I'm hiking, and this is something that happens to me a lot when I'm hiking. When I'm up on the mountaintops and seeing, sweeping vistas and all like that, it's beautiful, and it's just an amazing sight to see. As the panorama of the mountains and the skyline, the valleys below, and I'm often just awestruck by what I see from up there. But when I'm down in the valleys and walking through deep shadowed glades and the glens, the places where headwaters start, the laurels are thick, it makes me ache. It is much more stirring to my soul than the mountaintop experiences. And I've often thought that if I could write something that would make other people feel that sense of longing, that sense of at home, that makes me feel. I don't want to sound cliche and say that, my life would be complete, but it would be a big step toward my life being complete. And a lot of times that's the impetus for writing, especially in creative nonfiction, because I want to convey a sense of something. I want the reader to understand and to experience that sense of foreboding, for being in trouble with your parents, or that sense of anticipation and nervousness that comes with the first kiss, mouths not quite working together, that sense of thrill, the gut-wrenching wonder, I guess, of an automobile wreck as the car spins around sideways and all of a sudden you're no longer in control and are completely at the hands of the forces of gravity and inertia. To convey that sense that you can really only understand if you've experienced it, to be able to show that to somebody through written word, that's the start to the creative nonfiction process for me. Normally, there are exceptions, especially with assignments and things, but for personal writing, unless it's like an exposition, or an editorial piece, and in that case, well, it's still something you want the reader to understand. For the 40th anniversary of Deliverance, I wrote an exposition on the effects of deliverance on the Appalachian people. And a lot of folks, commented about it. Got some real good feedback, some real good reviews, some real good comments. But the reason that I wrote it, the point behind it, was I wanted people to understand that was not what being an Appalachian American was about. That it wasn't. Of course, people, I think on a conscious level, know that that's not how mountain folks are. But it doesn't stop the stereotype from being propagated. And it doesn't help, that so many people that live in the mountains are prone to wearing paddle faster. I hear banjos. When you're paddling faster because you hear banjos, it ought to be toward the banjos, not away from them. But anyway, no soapbox there this morning. The point behind writing it was so that people would understand that there are educated Appalachian Americans. I think that was the point. And with that kind of process, you already have the creative nonfiction, you already have the basis laid out, the plot line, so to speak. Your actions predetermined. And the thing that drives every paragraph is trying to reach that goal, making somebody understand the point, the feeling, to experience the emotion. So, in writing something like that, a lot of it's stream of consciousness with revision, and it's constant revision. And I know stream of consciousness doesn't really include revision, but that's kind of the process. You just sit down and write. You might have a rough outline in your head. Okay, I want to make these points. I want to finish up this way. But a lot of times there is no mental outline running. And so you just sit down and write, try to write cohesively. And then you go back and look at what you wrote. And as you go back and look at what you wrote, hey, I need to talk to them. As you go back and look at what you wrote, you do a little revision, make sure everything's organized the way that you want it organized. Make sure that you're actually writing in complete sentences and check your paragraphs. Look at your transitions. But there's a lot less process to something like that. I guess it is more constant revisiting. You revisit the main point that you want to make. And then at the end of the paragraph, you go back and reread it, at least the last couple of lines before you start your next paragraph, to make sure that there's a bit of flow to it. But there's a lot less process to that, a formal process, I should say, than the most other kinds of writing, because everything's already laid out. When you're relating a life event or a true story like that, without the need to talk about plotline, then you can pretty much just write how you feel about it as the events go. What do you remember? What colors were involved? What smells? What textures? How did you feel? What did you see? How did your character feel? How did your character see? If you're writing it from a point of view that you don't know. And of course, making creative nonfiction relevant to a reader, you pretty much have to go into somebody's head, into somebody's eyes. So unless it's just a report, or unless it's just an essay, which can be creative, if you do it right. Then there's almost always going to be some element of fiction to it. But anyway, that's the process. If you start off with something that you want to convey, an emotion, a point, an understanding, and often it's just sit down and free write. And chances are, if it's not an assignment, it's something that you've already put a good deal of thought into. It's not a good idea to free write for somebody else or for a reader something that you haven't put much thought into. So you have to give it some thought based on the emotion that you have. A lot of times that emotion will change as you go through the thought process, but once you get the gut feeling, once you get that felt sense, and go through the thought process, well, why do I feel like that? Well, how valid is my emotion? Is there a chance that other people feel this way? Is this something that other people ought to feel? Is this an emotion that I'm willing to delve into, or is this too personal? Is this something I'm going to keep for myself? And then once you go through the discovery process and expound on the validity, I guess, of your emotion, then you go through the writing process. You just sit down, free write, which is your pre-write, revision, and there's your final project, or final product. Final revision, of course, is your grammar and stuff. But for the pre-writing, or for the free writing, it's really important for me just to get everything down on paper, and I think better with a pen in my hand than I do any other way. And so a lot of times when I'm trying to organize my thoughts, and this is true whether it's just for a conversation or an argument or writing a paper or anything, I do it better with a pen in my hand. And so a lot of times when I'm trying to formulate or quantify my feelings, then it's with a pen. And a lot of times that turns into the basis for my writing. And there again, I guess that's all I got to say about that.